Captain Taeyong Kim stood on the bridge of the UESC Perseverance his eyes fixed on the main screen. The strange signal they had been tracking for days was growing stronger. Earth was far behind them now, past the orbit of Pluto, in the cold dark of deep space. "Captain, I'm getting clearer readings now," said Dr. Ju Park. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "The signal is definitely artificial, and definitely not human." Taeyong took a deep breath. Humanity had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Today, they might finally get their answer. "All stations, report status," he ordered. "Weapons systems ready, but inactive," said his first officer, Hana. "Good. We're here to make friends, not start a war." The Perseverance was Earth's most advanced ship. Built for exploration, it carried 120 crew members, scientists, engineers, and military personnel. They had been sent to investigate when Earth's deep space arrays picked up the strange signal 3 weeks ago. "There," shouted the sensor operator. "Visual contact." The main screen showed a small ship, unlike anything humans had designed. It was smooth and oval, with no visible engines or weapons. It gleamed under the distant sunlight. "Open communications," said Taeyong. "All frequencies, all languages. Send our first contact package." Minutes passed in tense silence. Then the screen flickered, showing a creature with 4 eyes and gray-blue skin. "We are Voraks," the alien said in surprisingly good English. "We observe your species with interest." For the next 6 hours, the humans and Voraks exchanged information. The aliens seemed peaceful and curious. They asked many questions about Earth, human biology, and society. Taeyong answered carefully, following first contact protocols. But Dr. Ju felt uneasy. Something wasn't right about the Voraks' questions. "Captain," she whispered, approaching Taeyong's chair. "They're asking too much about our defenses and biology. And their ship, the energy readings don't match what we can see. I think they're hiding something." Taeyong nodded slightly. "Keep analyzing their signals. I'll try to redirect the conversation." Before he could act, alarms blared across the bridge. "Energy spike," shouted Hana. "They're powering weapons." "Shields up," ordered Taeyong. But it was too late. The Vorak ship fired, a beam of bright blue energy cutting through space. It sliced into the Perseverance's hull, ripping through decks and systems. The ship rocked violently as explosions tore through it. "Return fire," Taeyong commanded, gripping his chair as the bridge shook. The Perseverance fired its railguns, but the shots bounced off the Vorak ship's shields. "Their technology is far beyond ours," said Ju, working frantically at her station. "But I'm getting readings on their shield frequency. Maybe we can." Another blast hit the ship. Panels exploded, throwing crew members across the bridge. Emergency lights flashed as the main power failed. 42 crew members dead, reported Hana, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. Engine room hit badly. Life support failing on decks 3 through 7. Taeyong made the hardest decision of his life. Prepare for emergency jump back to Earth. We need to warn them. As the damaged ship turned away, the Voraks sent one final message. On screen, the alien's 4 eyes seemed to gleam with satisfaction. "Your species has been classified as resource grade," it said. "Resistance is wasteful. Prepare for collection." The Perseverance limped away, engaging its jump drive with a dangerous surge of power. As they entered FTL speed, Taeyong looked at the destruction around his bridge. A third of his crew was dead. His ship was barely holding together. "Record everything," he told Ju. "Earth needs to know what's coming." Dr. Ju nodded grimly, her hands still working to save the ship's data. "Do you think we can prepare in time?" Taeyong looked at the starfield on the damaged view screen. "I don't know, but they've just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They don't understand what humans do when backed into a corner. The damaged asterisk Perseverance asterisk limped into Earth's orbit, trailing debris and venting air from its wounded hull. Emergency beacons blared, calling for immediate assistance. Admiral Henjin Kang stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, her face grim as the ship's distress call played. Captain Taeyong's voice was strained, filled with urgency. "They're coming. The Voraks are hostile. Prepare all defenses." "How many ships?" asked Kunjin, though she feared the answer. "Unknown," replied Taeyong, "but their technology far exceeds ours. We must prepare for the worst." Kunjin didn't waste time. She hit the emergency alert button, sending warnings to all Earth governments and military commands. This is not a drill. First contact has failed. Hostile alien force approaching. All defense systems to maximum readiness. But it was already too late. The long-range sensors lit up with dozens of new contacts coming from beyond Neptune's orbit. The Voraks fleet had arrived. "They must have followed the asterisk Perseverance asterisk's jump signature," said a young officer. His hands shook as he worked the controls. Kunjin straightened her uniform. "Deploy all orbital platforms. Launch every available ship. And may God help us all." Earth's small fleet of military spacecraft rose to meet the threat. 42 ships against the Voraks armada of over 300 vessels. The battle was short and brutal. On the asterisk Perseverance asterisk, now docked at the orbital station for emergency repairs, Lieutenant Minja Lee watched in horror as Earth's defenses crumbled. Each human ship fought bravely, but the Voraks' weapons cut through their shields like paper. "We need to save what data we can," said Dr. Ju Park, working frantically at her station. "Their biology, their technology. Anything that might help us fight back." Minjae nodded, helping her download critical files onto portable drives. The captain, still in surgery, he was badly hurt in the attack. A massive explosion rocked the station. Through the viewport, Minji saw Earth's largest battleship break apart, its reactor core detonating in a bright flash. "We have to go," he urged. "This station won't last much longer." They made their way to a small shuttle bay, passing crews rushing to battle stations and wounded being carried to medical bays. Just as they reached a shuttle, another explosion tore through the station. "Get in," shouted Juu, pushing Minja toward the shuttle door. "Not without you." The ceiling collapsed between them. Juu was trapped on the other side, but the data drives were with Minja. "Go," she yelled. "Get that data to someone who can use it. It's our only hope." With tears in his eyes, Minjae sealed the shuttle door and launched, watching the station break apart moments later. He set course for Earth, dodging debris and Voraks fighters. On the surface, chaos reigned. The Voraks commander, Drek, broadcast his message to all Earth communication systems. "Humans of Earth, you have been classified as a resource species. Your biological makeup and planetary resources are now property of the Voraks Dominion. Resistance is wasteful and will result in unnecessary damage to valuable assets. Submit for processing." In major cities, people watched in terror as massive Voraks ships descended through the clouds. Seoul, New York, London, Beijing, each targeted with precision strikes against military bases and government centers. Millions died in the first hour. Minji's shuttle crashed in a forest outside of what was once Seoul. Dazed but alive, he crawled from the wreckage, clutching the precious data drives. In the distance, he saw the glow of fires and heard strange, mechanical sounds as Voraks ground forces began their collection efforts. A hand grabbed his shoulder. He turned, ready to fight, but found a human face instead. A woman in torn military fatigues, with hard eyes and a rifle in her hands. "I'm Sumin Choi, Korean Special Forces," she said. "If you're going to survive, you come with me now." "I have data," Minja said, showing her the drives. "About the Voraks. Their weaknesses." Sumin's expression didn't change, but her grip on his shoulder tightened. Then you just became the most important person on what's left of Earth. Follow me and stay quiet. The hunt has already begun." As they disappeared into the forest, the sky above turned red with fire as humanity's world burned around them. 3 months had passed since the Voraks came to Earth. The blue skies that once covered the planet were now gray with smoke and dust. In every major city, tall black towers rose where parks and plazas used to be. These were the processing centers, where humans were taken and never seen again. Suman Choi crouched behind a broken wall, watching one such center in what was once downtown Seoul. Through her binoculars, she could see lines of captured humans being marched inside. "How many today?" asked Minja, kneeling beside her. "At least 300, she replied, her voice flat. "Mostly young adults." Behind them, 20 resistance fighters waited for orders. They were a mix of former soldiers and civilians, all thin from months of hiding and fighting. They carried a mix of human weapons and stolen Voraks guns. "We can't save them all," Suman said, "but we can hit their transport ships." Kyung set the charges. A grim-faced man nodded and moved forward with several others, carrying backpacks full of explosives. Minjae had changed in the past 3 months. The frightened lieutenant was now harder, his eyes cold when he looked at the Voraks patrols. The data he had saved from the Perseverance had been crucial. It showed the Voraks had done this before to many other worlds. They farmed species, he had told Suman when they first analyzed the files. Some for labor, some for scientific study, some for resources. They destroyed dozens of civilizations. A quiet beep came from Suman's radio. "Team in position," came Kyung's voice. Suman raised her hand, then dropped it. The signal to attack. Explosions rocked the Voraks transports. As alien guards rushed to respond, Suman's team opened fire from multiple positions. The aliens fell, their blue blood spilling onto the concrete. "Move to Phase 2, ordered Suman. Half her team raced forward, planting more explosives on the processing center's outer doors. The blast tore them open, and frightened humans began pouring out, guided by resistance fighters toward escape routes. "We have 5 minutes before reinforcements arrive," said Minjae, checking his timer. Suman nodded. "That's all we need." In the chaos, they slipped inside the building. While the other fighters kept evacuating people, Suman, Minjae, and 2 others went deeper into the facility. What they found made even Suman stop in shock. Huge tanks lined the walls, filled with green liquid. Humans floated inside, connected to machines by tubes and wires. Some were missing limbs. Others had strange devices attached to their heads. "They're experimenting on them," whispered one fighter, his voice breaking. "Not just experimenting," said Minjae, looking at the Voraks writing on a nearby screen. "Harvesting. Organs, tissues, brain waves. They're treating us like resources." Suman's face hardened. "Set charges. Maximum yield. We're destroying this place completely." As they worked, an alarm started blaring. "Time's up," said Minja. "We need to go." They ran, planting explosives as they went. Outside, most of the captured humans had been evacuated. The resistance fighters were providing covering fire as the last groups escaped. "Everyone pull back," shouted Suman. 30 seconds to detonation. They ran through the ruins of Seoul, the sounds of Voraks weapons fire behind them. When they reached the safe distance, Suman hit the detonator. The processing center collapsed in a massive fireball. Cheers went up from the resistance fighters, but Suman didn't smile. "Get these people to the mountain base," she ordered. "Move quickly. The Voraks will be hunting us hard after this." Later that night, in their hidden base deep in the Himalayan mountains, Suman met with Admiral Kenjin Kang. The admiral had survived the initial attack and now led what remained of Earth's military forces from this secret location. "The intel you gathered confirms what we suspected," said Hyunjin, looking over Minji's latest findings. "The Voraks have done this to dozens of worlds, but none of those species fought back effectively. "What makes you think we can?" asked Suman. Admiral Kang looked up, her eyes burning with cold fire. "Because they've taken everything from us," she said, "which means we have nothing left to lose. And that makes humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy." She pressed a button, revealing a map of Vorax installations worldwide. "It's time to show them why they should have never come to Earth. It's time for Protocol Ragnarok." 6 months into the Vorax occupation of Earth, the resistance had grown stronger. What started as small groups of survivors had become an organized force. They called themselves Ghosts because they struck quickly and disappeared before the Vorax could respond. In what was once London, Suman Choi led a team through the ruins of the city. They moved quietly, staying in shadows. Each fighter carried weapons taken from dead Vorax soldiers. The alien guns were more powerful than anything humans had made before. "Target in sight," whispered Kyung, pointing to a large building surrounded by Vorax guards. "Their command center for this region." Suman nodded. "Remember the plan. We're not here to fight. We're here to steal." The resistance needed information, maps of Vorax bases, patrol schedules, and most importantly, access to their communication network. Admiral Kang's plan required them to know when and where Vorax ships would be moving. "Team 1, create the distraction," ordered Suman through her radio. On the far side of the command center, explosions lit up the night sky. As Vorax guards rushed to respond, Suman's team moved in from the opposite direction. They used a stolen Vorax keycard to enter through a side door. "We have 10 minutes, said Minjae, who had become Suman's second in command. "After that, they'll realize it's a diversion." Inside, they met little resistance. Most of the Vorax had responded to the attack outside. The few guards they encountered were quickly taken down with silent shots from their own weapons. They reached the main computer room. Minjae plugged in a device Dr. Juwoo had designed before her death. It began copying all the Vorax data it could access. 5 minutes, said Minjae, watching the progress. Suman stood guard at the door. "Something's wrong. It's too easy." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the building. Red lights flashed in the hallways. "We've been compromised," said Minjae. "The download is only at 60%. "Keep going," ordered Suman. "We need that data." Heavy footsteps approached from both ends of the hallway. Suman made a quick decision. "Kyung, take half the team and create another diversion. The rest stay with me to protect Minjae until the download finishes." The fighting was brutal. Vorax soldiers poured into the hallway, and Suman's team held them back with stolen weapons and explosives. One by one, her fighters fell. But they bought precious minutes. "Download complete," shouted Minjae. Suman threw her last grenade and pulled Minjae away from the computer. "Move." They ran through corridors filled with smoke and the bodies of both humans and Vorax. Only 3 of their original 12-person team remained alive. "Exits blocked," said the third survivor, a young woman named Jia. Suman looked around quickly. "The roof. We go up." They fought their way to the roof, where Vorax aircraft circled overhead. The situation looked hopeless. "Now what?" asked Jia, breathing hard. Suman touched her radio. "This is Ghost Leader. Package secured. Execute Protocol Valkyrie." Moments later, the sky lit up as human fighter jets, machines that hadn't been seen since the early days of the invasion, roared overhead. They engaged the Vorax aircraft, drawing them away from the building. "Jump," ordered Suman, pointing to a neighboring building. The 3 survivors leaped across the gap, then made their way down through the ruined building. On the ground, resistance vehicles waited to extract them. Back at the Himalayan base, Admiral Kang reviewed the stolen data. "This is exactly what we needed," she said, her face showing satisfaction for the first time in months. "With this, we can start coordinating global strikes." Dr. Juwoo's replacement, a brilliant scientist named Dr. Sun Ba, entered the room with excitement on his face. "Admiral, I've made a breakthrough," he said. The samples from the Vorax prisoners show a significant weakness. They're highly allergic to a compound found in common earth fungi. Admiral Kang's eyes widened. Can you weaponize it? Dr. Sunwoo nodded. Given time and resources, yes. You'll have both, said Kang. She turned to Suman. This changes everything. We now have a way to hurt them. Really hurt them. Suman's face remained hard. Good. They opened the door to hell. We're just stepping through. In orbit above Earth, Captain Do-hyun Ryo prepared his ship, the Vengeance for a dangerous mission. With refugees and soldiers aboard, they would attempt to escape the solar system to establish a hidden colony. We'll return, he promised as Earth shrank in his view screen. And when we do, the Vorax will learn what it means to face humanity's full wrath. 1 year had passed since the Vorax invaded Earth. What remained of humanity had changed. No longer were they just survivors hiding in ruins. They had become warriors with a single purpose, to drive the aliens from their world. Admiral Hyunjin Kang stood before 200 resistance leaders gathered in the vast underground chamber of the Himalayan base. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing Vorax positions across the globe. Today, she said, her voice strong despite her thin frame, we stop running. Today, we show the Vorax what happens when you corner humanity. She revealed the details of Protocol Ragnarok. It wasn't just about fighting back. It was about making the Vorax regret ever hearing the word human. In a laboratory deep within the base, Dr. Sunwoo Bai finished his work. For months, he had studied the Vorax biology, looking for weaknesses. The fungal compound had been just the beginning. It's ready, he told Minjae, who had come to check his progress. The biological weapon was perfect. It attacked only Vorax DNA, leaving humans and Earth animals unharmed. It would spread through air and water, causing fever and paralysis in the aliens. Not enough to kill them all, but enough to weaken their forces. Will it work? Asked Minjae, looking at the small container that held their greatest hope. In theory, yes, said Dr. Sunwoo. But we need to deploy it in their command ship's air systems for maximum effect. That's the hard part. Minjae nodded grimly. I'll lead the team myself. That night, 3 small human ships, hidden from Vorax sensors by technology reverse-engineered from captured alien craft, approached the massive Vorax command vessel in orbit. Minjae led 12 of the best fighters, including Suman, on what most considered a suicide mission. They docked silently at a maintenance port, using stolen codes from their previous raid. Once inside, they split into 3 teams. Remember, said Minjae through their secure comms, Team 1 secures the escape route. Team 2 creates diversions. Team 3, my team, delivers the package to the central air system. Suman, leading Team 2, set explosive charges at key points throughout the lower decks. When detonated, they would draw Vorax security away from Minjae's path. Charges set, she reported. Ready on your mark. Begin, ordered Minjae. The explosions rocked the massive ship. Alarms blared as Vorax troops rushed to respond. In the confusion, Minjae's team moved toward the central air processing unit. They encountered heavy resistance. 2 of Minjae's team fell in the first firefight. Another was wounded but kept moving. Finally, they reached the air system control room. Cover me, said Minjae, taking the biological agent from his pack. As his team held off Vorax attackers, Minjae worked quickly to connect the container to the main air intake. Once released, the weapon would spread throughout the ship within minutes. It's done, he shouted over the sound of weapons fire. Fall back to the extraction point. But the way back was now blocked by dozens of Vorax soldiers. Team 1 reported that they were under heavy attack at the escape route. Team 2, Suman's team, had gone silent. Find another way, Minjae ordered. We need to get off this ship now. They fought through corridors, taking heavy losses. By the time they reached a secondary maintenance dock, only Minjae and 1 other fighter remained alive. They found a small Vorax shuttle and managed to launch, but Vorax ships pursued them relentlessly. "We won't make it to Earth," said the other fighter, bleeding badly from multiple wounds. "We don't need to," replied Minja. "The mission was successful. The weapon is deployed." As their stolen shuttle was hit repeatedly, Minja sent one final message to Earth. "Package delivered. Ragnarok is active." The shuttle crashed into Earth's atmosphere, breaking apart as it fell. By some miracle, Minja survived, though badly injured. He was found by resistance fighters and taken back to the Himalayan base. When he awoke days later, Admiral Kang was at his bedside. "Did it work?" he asked weakly. She nodded, a fierce smile on her face. "It worked better than we hoped. The Vorax command ship is crippled. Half their officers are sick or dying." "Suman?" he asked. Kang's face grew grim. "She didn't make it back, but she took down 30 Vorax soldiers before they got her." Minja closed his eyes, grief washing over him. Then he felt Kang grip his hand tightly. "But that's not all," she said. "While you were unconscious, we've started the next phase. Psychological warfare. The Vorax are superstitious. They fear certain patterns and sounds. We're using that against them now." She showed him images on a tablet. Resistance fighters leaving strange symbols at attack sites, broadcasting sounds that triggered panic in Vorax troops. "We're not just fighting back," said Kang. "We're becoming their nightmares." 18 months after the invasion began, the Vorax were facing something they had never experienced before: failure. Their command ship was crippled. Their troops were falling sick from the human bioweapon. And most disturbing to them, they were beginning to feel fear. High Commander Xol arrived in Earth's orbit with a second fleet. His massive ship dwarfed even the original command vessel. He was not pleased with what he found. "Explain how primitive humans have caused this much damage," he demanded of Commander Drek. Drek, once confident and cruel, now seemed nervous. "They are different from other species we've harvested. They don't surrender. They keep fighting even when victory seems impossible." "Nonsense," said Xol. "They are simply resources that refuse to be processed. I will show you how to handle them properly." Sol ordered new, harsher measures. More processing centers were built. Vorax patrols increased. They began destroying entire cities as punishment for resistance activities. But the humans had changed their tactics too. Instead of direct attacks, they used the psychological warfare that Admiral Kang had developed. They left strange symbols painted in human blood at attack sites. They broadcast sounds at frequencies that hurt Vorax hearing. They spread stories among captured Vorax soldiers about human fighters who couldn't be killed. In the Himalayan base, Minja had recovered from his injuries and now led the Resistance's main strike force. He stood with Admiral Kang, reviewing their plans. "The bioweapon has infected 60% of their forces," said Kang. "But this new commander, Xol, has brought fresh troops. We need a new advantage." "Maybe we already have one," replied Minja. "Our scouts report that Vorax soldiers are now hesitating before entering buildings marked with our symbols. Some refuse to go on night patrols. They're becoming afraid of us." Kang nodded. "Fear is a weapon too, but we need something more." That something more arrived unexpectedly. Earth's long-range sensors detected multiple ships entering the solar system. At first, they feared more Vorax reinforcements. But these ships were different. "They're broadcasting on human frequencies," said a communications officer. It's Captain Do-Yun." On the main screen, Captain Do-Yun Ryu's face appeared. He looked older, with new scars, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "Admiral Kang, this is Captain Ryu of the Colony Fleet. We've returned, and we're not alone." The camera panned to show alien beings standing beside him. They were tall with silver skin and 4 arms. "These are the Erethi," explained Do-Yun. "They were victims of the Vorax before us. They'd been hiding for centuries, building their strength. When we found them, they agreed to help us fight our common enemy." Hope spread through the base like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion, humans dared to believe they might win. Zol detected the new arrivals too. He sent a fleet of ships to intercept them. The battle that followed stunned even the confident Vorax commander. The human Arathi ships used technology beyond anything the Vorax possessed. Their weapons cut through Vorax shields. Their own defenses held against Vorax attacks. Impossible, muttered Sol as he watched his ships being destroyed. How did they advance so quickly? On Earth, Admiral Kang prepared for their biggest operation yet, Operation Hellfire. With the Vorax fleet distracted by the battle in space, ground forces would strike all major Vorax bases simultaneously. The time has come, she told the gathered resistance leaders. Today we take back our planet. Minja led one of the largest attack groups toward the main processing center in what was once Beijing. 5,000 fighters, once ordinary people, teachers, farmers, office workers, now moved like soldiers through the ruins. They carried not just weapons, but devices that broadcast the sounds Vorax feared. They wore symbols painted on their armor that made Vorax soldiers hesitate. And they carried modified versions of Dr. Sunwoo's bioweapon, designed to work faster and spread more easily. As dawn broke, attacks began worldwide. Resistance fighters struck Vorax installations on every continent. The aliens, already weakened and afraid, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. In orbit, Sol received desperate messages from his ground commanders. The humans, one reported, voice shaking with something Vorax rarely felt. Fear. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They fight like demons. For the first time, in centuries of conquest, the Vorax began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake in coming to Earth. 2 years after the Vorax first attacked Earth, the planet's surface bore the scars of war, ruined cities, burned forests, and poisoned waters. But humanity was no longer hiding. The combined human Arathi fleet, now calling itself the Reclamation Force, engaged the Vorax Armada in Earth orbit. Captain Doyun Ryu commanded from his flagship, the Hope's Return Asterisk, a massive vessel built with Arathi technology in the hidden colony. All ships, attack pattern Echo, ordered Doyun. Target their command vessels first. The human ships moved in ways the Vorax could not predict. While Vorax tactics rely on overwhelming force and standard formations, humans used chaos and surprise. They sacrificed smaller ships to create openings for larger ones. They turned damaged vessels into weapons, ramming them into Vorax ships. The Arathi contributed their advanced technology and centuries of knowledge about Vorax weaknesses. Their energy weapons passed right through Vorax shields, as if they weren't there. On the bridge of his flagship, High Commander Xol watched in growing alarm as his fleet was torn apart. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. They were primitives just 2 years ago. His second-in-command had no answer. The Vorax had never faced an enemy that adapted so quickly or fought so fiercely. On Earth's surface, the ground war was equally shocking to the Vorax. Minja led a force of 10,000 fighters in an assault on the largest Vorax base in what was once North America. They attacked not just with weapons, but with psychological tactics that left the aliens confused and afraid. Squad 3, deploy the sound weapons, ordered Minja over the radio. Squad 5, flank from the east, with the fear symbols visible. The Vorax soldiers hesitated when they saw the human symbols, simple patterns that somehow triggered deep fear responses in their brains. The sound weapons broadcast frequencies that disoriented them, making them unable to fight effectively. And then there were the stories, tales spread by captured and released Vorax soldiers about humans who fought even when mortally wounded, who laughed at pain, who whispered terrible promises about what would happen to the Vorax homeworld. In cities around the world, ordinary people who had hidden for 2 years emerged to join the fight. They used whatever weapons they could find, from stolen Vorax technology to simple knives and clubs. They overwhelmed Vorax patrols through sheer numbers and savage determination. In Seoul, an old man threw himself at a Vorax soldier to allow younger fighters time to attack. In the ruins of London, children led alien troops into deadly traps. In what was once Rio de Janeiro, a group of former office workers captured a Vorax shuttle and crashed it into a processing center. From his command center, High Commander Xol watched in growing horror as reports flooded in from around the planet. "They're everywhere," reported a field commander, his voice shaking. "They don't fight according to any tactics we understand. There is no surrender in them." For the first time in his long career of conquest, Seoul felt a new emotion: doubt. Had the Vorax made a terrible mistake in coming to this world? In orbit, the space battle reached its climax. Captain Do-hyun gave the order he had waited 2 years to give. "All ships, break through their line. Target their flagship. It's time to end this." The human Arathi fleet surged forward, cutting through the remaining Vorax defenses. Do-hyun's ship, the Hopes Return led the charge, its weapons tearing into Xol's flagship. On the ground, Admiral Kang received the update from space. She smiled for the first time in months. "Tell all ground forces," she ordered her communications officer. "Push forward. The Vorax are breaking." Minja, leading the assault on the North American base, heard the news through his radio. His fighters cheered, but he kept his focus. They had learned the hard way not to celebrate too early. "Keep moving," he told his troops. "We don't stop until every processing center is destroyed and every human is free." As night fell across the wounded Earth, fires burned in every former Vorax stronghold. The aliens who had come as conquerors were now running for their ships, desperate to escape the planet they had so badly underestimated. High Commander Xol, watching the disaster unfold from his damaged flagship, finally understood what his forces had awakened. "They fight like nothing we've encountered," he told his officers. "They don't follow the rules of warfare as we understand them. There is no surrender in them, only rage." One officer dared to ask the unthinkable: "Should we withdraw from this world?" Xol stared at the burning planet below. "I fear it may already be too late for that." 2.5 years since the Vorax first attacked Earth, the aliens who had come as conquerors were now in full retreat. Across the solar system, Vorax ships fled toward the jump points that would take them home. But humanity had no intention of letting them escape. "Pursue and destroy," ordered Admiral Kang from the New Earth Defense Command Center, rebuilt from the ruins of Seoul. "Don't let a single Vorax ship leave our system." The combined human Arathi fleet, now larger and more powerful than ever, chased the retreating Vorax. Ships built in the hidden colony and in Arathi space had joined the fight. Captain Do-hyun's flagship led the pursuit, its weapons tearing through the fleeing enemy vessels. "We have them cornered at the edge of the system," reported Do-hyun to Admiral Kang. "Their jump drives are damaged. They can't escape." Kang's face appeared on his view screen, her eyes hard with determination. "Good. Finish them." But Do-hyun hesitated. "Admiral, I'm detecting unusual signals from the Vorax command ship. They're asking to surrender." This was unprecedented. In all the records the Arathi had shared, the Vorax had never surrendered to any species they had attacked. On Earth, Admiral Kang called an emergency meeting with the remaining world leaders. Min-jae attended as the representative of the ground forces. "We have the Vorax trapped," Kang explained. "They're asking for terms." "No terms," said the leader of what remained of China. "After what they did to our world, they deserve extinction." Many others agreed. The Vorax had killed billions of humans. They had destroyed cities, poisoned land, and treated people like lab animals. Why should humanity show mercy? Dr. Sunwoo entered the room, carrying a datapad. "I've completed work on the enhanced bioweapon," he announced. "If deployed in the Vorax home system, it could potentially eliminate their entire species." Silence fell over the room. The power to commit genocide was now in humanity's hands. Min-jae, who had lost more than most of the Vorax, stood up. 2 years ago, I would have said use it without hesitation. But if we destroy their entire species, how are we different from them? Arguments erupted around the table. Some demanded vengeance. Others, like Minja, questioned whether humanity should step back from the brink. Meanwhile, in space, Captain Do-hyun made a discovery that changed everything. His team had boarded the surrendered Vorax command ship and accessed their central database. "Admiral," he reported urgently, "you need to see this." The data revealed a shocking truth. The Vorax themselves had been manipulated. Another, more ancient species called the Architects had been using the Vorax as proxies for conquest for centuries. The Architects remained hidden, allowing the Vorax to face the consequences while they reaped the benefits. "There are signs of genetic tampering in the Vorax DNA," explained Do-hyun. "The Architects enhanced their aggression and reduced their empathy. The Vorax were shaped to be conquerors." Back on Earth, this news spread quickly through the leadership meeting. "So there's someone else pulling the strings," said Admiral Kang thoughtfully. "A puppet master hiding in the shadows." "Does this change anything?" asked one of the leaders. "The Vorax still killed billions of our people." "It changes everything," replied Minja. "It means there's a greater enemy out there, one that's been manipulating species against each other for who knows how long." Admiral Kang made her decision. "We accept the Vorax surrender, but with conditions. They must share everything they know about these Architects, and they must join us in fighting them." Not everyone agreed with this choice. Many humans still wanted the Vorax to pay for what they had done to Earth. But as Minja pointed out, the real victory isn't destroying the Vorax. It's finding and stopping the creatures who have been playing us all like pieces on a board. Captain Do-hyun, standing on the bridge of the captured Vorax flagship, looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Architects were watching, perhaps already planning their next move. "Tell Admiral Kang we're going after them," he said to his communications officer. "The Vorax were just the beginning. Now we hunt the real enemy." On Earth, preparations began for a new kind of war, not just for vengeance, but for justice across the stars. 3 years after the Vorax invasion of Earth, the planet was slowly healing, though scars remained in the ruined cities and empty lands where millions once lived. But humanity had not spent this time only rebuilding. They had been preparing. The massive fleet that gathered at the edge of the solar system was unlike anything Earth had produced before. Human ships built with Arathi technology flew alongside vessels crewed by Vorax rebels who had broken free from the Architects' control. This unlikely alliance, victims and former oppressors, had a common enemy. Admiral Hyunjin Kang stood on the bridge of the flagship Vengeance named in honor of Captain Do-hyun's original vessel. Beside her stood Minja, now General Lee, commander of the ground forces. "The Architects' home system is heavily defended," said Minja, studying the tactical display. "They've hidden for thousands of years, manipulating other species into fighting their wars." "Not anymore," replied Kang. "Today we end their games." As they approached, they received a transmission. On screen appeared a being unlike any they had seen before, tall and slender with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. "Humans," it said in a cold, musical voice, "you have come far from your little world. Turn back now, and we will allow your species to continue existing." Admiral Kang stepped forward. "We're not here to negotiate. You used the Vorax to attack our world. Billions died because of your manipulation." The Architects seemed amused. "Many species have fallen in our great game. The Vorax were merely our latest pieces. You would have been next, shaped over generations to become our new warriors." "Not happening," said Kang simply. "Humanity doesn't play by your rules." The battle that followed was unlike any fought before in the galaxy's long history. The Architects had powerful defenses, but they had never expected to face their own weapons turned against them. The rebel Vorax knew the weaknesses of systems they had once used. The Arathi brought millennia of hidden knowledge, and the humans brought something entirely new, unpredictable tactics and a fierce determination born from nearly losing everything. Captain Do-hyun, commanding the strike force that broke through the architect's orbital defenses, gave the order to deploy the special weapons Dr. Sunwoo had designed. Not bioweapons to destroy the architects, but devices that disrupted the control signals they used to manipulate other species. On the architect's homeworld, chaos erupted as servant species suddenly found themselves free of mental controls that had bound them for generations. The final assault on the architect's central command was led by Minjae himself. Fighting alongside him were human soldiers, Arathi warriors, and even Vorax who had broken free of their conditioning. They faced not just architect defenders, but traps and weapons designed over thousands of years of conquest. They're trying to activate a failsafe, warned a Vorax rebel as they fought their way into the central chamber, a signal that would trigger violence in all their controlled species across the galaxy. Minjae's team raced against time, fighting room by room through the massive structure. When they finally reached the main control center, they found the architect leader preparing to send the signal. "You cannot stop us," it said. "We have guided the evolution of 100 species. We have ruled this galaxy from the shadows since before your kind discovered fire." "Maybe so," replied Minjae, raising his weapon. "But you made one big mistake." "And what was that?" asked the architect. "You picked a fight with humans." The signal was stopped. The architect's power was broken. Across the galaxy, species began to wake from their long manipulation. 6 months later, on a rebuilt plaza in Seoul, Admiral Kang stood before representatives from 24 species, former enemies and new allies alike. They had gathered to sign the Galactic Accord, a coalition dedicated to preventing any civilization from dominating others. The architects believed that conflict and domination were the natural order, she told the assembled delegates. They used the Vorax to unleash hell on Earth and many other worlds. But in doing so, they taught us all a valuable lesson. She looked across the faces of beings from across the stars. They taught us that our greatest strength isn't in fighting alone, but in standing together against those who would divide us. As Earth continued to heal, new ships left its ports, not for war, but for exploration and trade. The species that had once been enemies now worked to rebuild what centuries of manipulation had destroyed. And throughout the galaxy, a new saying spread among those who might consider aggression against others. Beware the humans. They don't just fight back. They change the rules of the game.